Hello, it's a day.
Hello.
Today is a day.
Today. It's just a regular Tuesday.
I slept fine.
9 hours.
Whenever you're hearing this, the day that we're recording this is November 5th. Lil election, L-I-L. Lil. Let me just ask you this. We'll just put it like this. Are you, what's your soundtrack this week? You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. And that's actually a huge part of my...
Your self-soothe?
Yes. Self-soothing, self-medicating lifestyle.
Sure. Yeah.
Is a carefully curated soundtrack.
I believe this about you. What did you choose?
I chose bands that have a lot of people in them.
Oh, interesting. Why?
And believe me, this was carefully thought through.
Like Mumford.
Like Strumbellas, Arcade Fire, Mount Joy.
Well, you've just said 3 things I don't know.
Here's why. All those bands, the lyrics are intelligent and complex and talk about hard things.
Okay.
So acknowledge.
That I get.
Things can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
But because there's inherently so many people in the band, the choruses all have this sing-along quality. Mm-hmm. And so you feel less isolated just singing along. Things are hard, but we're in it together.
That is some psychological, warfare against your own anxiety.
Every day I wake up and try to figure out how to hack my brain.
Yeah, I hear you.
So...
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, but this one works.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so all weekend, that's what I've listened to.
I ran away to the beach with my 3 best friends from college. Oh. And as you know, I just got here an hour before this.
Yes.
And so I guess what I took was the avoidance tactic. Mm-hmm. I just didn't go on socials. I didn't open my phone. I didn't watch a new show. I just said, I wonder if maybe I can just put my feet in the sand for a day or 2.
Did it work?
Yeah. I mean, yes-ish.
You missed some stuff.
I'm sure I did.
But I'm not more at peace or a better human.
That's right.
For having seen it all.
Deteriorating.
Yeah.
I was deteriorating last week. And not sleeping, and ready. And to what end? No end. Just internal turmoil. I've done what I can do. I've led as clearly and bravely as I know how to in my big community. I've led my family, my kids. I've had important conversations with my friends and the people around me. I've done what I can do. And so at some point, the constant chaotic intake it's a law of diminishing returns for me.
Yes.
And it is okay to know that you can say, I have been highly engaged and I just simply am going to have to put a little distance between this 24/7 news cycle right now.
Yeah.
So I can sleep. Because it's going to be what it's going to be today, which we'll find out.
And also we should probably carry that advice forward.
Just period?
Over the next 3 months. Yes,
yeah.
Period. We need some space.
I think America's traumatized.
Yeah.
I think we're traumatized. I think we're exhausted. And really, no matter what happens today, we are going to have some chaos. Mm-hmm. No matter either which way. There's going to be a reactionary chaos. There's going to be potentially leadership chaos. We don't know. But we need a little space.
Something to be said for the beach and a sing-along.
Mount Joy.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Playlist. Mount Joy.
I don't know. I'm really bad about music.
I know.
I tend to just love the music that I've always loved in the olden days.
Yeah.
And I just do my repeat old music, my old playlists. They're comforting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really know new things. But Okay, let's do a couple segments before we bring in one of my favorite, just people, period, today. One of my favorite people is on the show today. We could not have had a better guest with better things to say on a volatile, like, important day like today.
The thought of talking to her has lowered my blood pressure.
Same.
Multiple times.
100% same. Like, she's just got this steady wisdom. It's calm in nature. It's generous in spirit. I've never seen her wobble. So anyway, we'll get to it. Before we get to her, let's do a little bless and release.
Bless and release. You know you got to bless.
First of all, for everybody looking at us on YouTube, I would like for you to notice our matching sweatshirts that consequently say bless and release. We have merch now, Amy.
I know, and my sweatshirt wardrobe has increased by 25% today.
That's so exciting.
So, yes, big day for me.
Sure is. This will see you through the winter. It's cozy.
100%.
Okay. Here is, well, I don't even know that we're going to release it. We can try. We can say that we are going to bless and release the small little lies we tell ourselves. Mm-hmm. Now, let's not get into serious headspace. We don't mean the ones that are harming our psyche or our interpersonal relationships or our family. We mean the dumb ones. Mm-hmm. The dumb ones. Like, I am going to empty out my inbox today. I'm just not. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I know that I'm not going to do it, but I said that I will do it. But instead, I will just keep the same ones in there as this running, like, task list of things I have not accomplished, and I'll feel bad about it and wake up at 3 a.m. and think about it. That's what I'm doing instead.
That's what an inbox is for.
Thanks.
First of all, you just, like, change the script. You're just using it as a task manager, and that's fine.
I like that.
Like, yeah.
I do like that.
Release the thought that you have to empty.
It's not been emptied ever. One time my friend Jamie Wright told me that her inbox had just gotten so out of control and unanswered, and it was all the junk with the this and it was from every single source in the whole world, and it was like this boulder on her, like, shoulders walking around with, and she said one day she just deleted her whole inbox. And she was like, I was a new person. I'm like, you just deleted it all? Well, what was in there? She's like, how the fuck do I know? Like, I just deleted the whole thing. And I was like, and she was like, the mental load that rolled off my shoulders was amazing. I felt like a new human being. And I'm like, can we do that? Can we just do that? It didn't take her out. So anyway, I'm just saying there are other options, like just deleting everything that you have. What do you? Do you have a half-truth?
I have a...
You'd like to release?
Yes, probably a lot, but you said we can't mention any that are harming our psyche or...
Oh, no.
I'm sure I have big ones. Okay. But I do know every single day my brain lies to me about time.
Tell me more. Look at you. I know. It's the Easter egg.
I think this is common with ADHD.
I already know what you're going to say.
My brain acknowledges now and not now, and likes to work in, like, increments of 5 minutes. So nobody who knows me would ever accuse me of being an optimist. But I am when it comes to managing what I need to do to get out the door.
Tell me what you mean by that.
So I lie to myself daily about how long it's going to take for me to get out the door and what I can do before I get ready to leave.
Oh.
So everything's
Give
5
us an
minutes.
example. Like,
so if it's a task I don't want to do, but I can't make myself do it. And I will say, well, folding that basket of towels will take 3 hours. It might not ever end. I might die
sure,
while I'm doing it, so it doesn't get done. But if I have to leave the house, like to be on time for a podcast.
For example?
I'll be like, I can fold those 3 baskets of towels and also shower.
Sure.
And get dressed.
Start dinner in a crock pot.
And be driving down the driveway in 10 minutes.
I live with a person like this, and it is stunning.
I lie to myself every
Because you
single...
believe it. Sometimes some part of you must believe it.
Yes. Well, I think like one time I showered, got dressed, put on makeup, and was ready for an important Zoom call.
Okay.
Like with hospital administration.
Oh, yeah.
In under 12 minutes.
Okay.
So, and I had to judge myself for that. So ever since then, my brain's like, well, you could get ready for your everyday in 5.
I see. There's that 5-minute increment.
Yeah.
That's just your go-to. It's about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And is it?
No.
Uh-huh.
Possibly related. It could be another segment sometime, is that I'm 5 to 10 minutes late for everything.
Could be related. It's certainly adjacent.
The fact that it's only 5 or 10 minutes late, though, miracle.
I do look forward to the probable text I'm going to get from you on every podcast day that just says OTW on the way. And it's like, you've wanted to leave 6 minutes ago, but you're just letting me know at this point I'm in my car. And
Yes.
I'm like, sure, great, get here. Like,
So yes, I'd like to release this, but I really don't even understand, like neurologically, what's happening and why.
Well, the ADHD thing is no joke. It's just no joke. Like, the time blindness is something I just recently learned about because I have a time blind child, and it's stunning. It is stunning. Like, she will need to leave to her job, that's her job. She's going to get fired if she doesn't get there on time. It's not like get there when you get there.
Yeah.
She will need to leave the house in 8 minutes, and that'll take every second of the minutes she has to walk in exactly on time, not a second sooner. And 8 minutes to go, she will say something insane. Like, I'm going to hop in the shower. I'm like, you are not. You are not hopping in the shower. You are not hopping in the shower.
That feels like in the moment, like if I was saying I'm gonna hop in the shower and you say no you're not, like why are you wasting my time and picking a fight? You don't know me.
You don't know me.
Like I will absolutely do that. I have like plotted this out in my brain. I know exactly how long everything's gonna take.
Oh my God, except you're wrong about it.
I'm wrong.
That's the problem. Okay, this is helping me have a compassion for my child because I just keep thinking she is like doing this against me. Like, you are just absolutely trying to F with me. And I think she just thinks she can hop in the shower.
Yeah.
She can't. Okay. Well, let's just see how that goes. Let's see how that goes.
I am actively working on blessing it. Like seeing like any neurodiversity as a superpower.
Okay.
Like it can be. And also releasing all the crap that comes with it. But also I'm an adult and I do need some time management skills.
Okay.
So I'm always trying to...
So something in between. You need to both gentle parent yourself and then also mean parent yourself. Yeah, something in the between. I get that. Okay, let's do one more quick segment. Let's do some Gen Excellence.
Here's Gen Excellence. Gen Excellence. Gen Excellence.
I think we've actually talked adjacent to this one before because there's so much to say about it. It could run on its own like engine for so long. I would like to know your experience in general with MTV in general. And then a particularly memorable video. Because now MTV is like whatever. I don't even, a reality show, I honestly don't even know either. Is the MTV still a thing?
Yes.
It is?
Yes, because there was just the MTV Music Awards, Video Awards. Like
Yeah. Okay.
something. Yeah. And I think there's still music videos.
Okay.
I don't know though.
Okay. I don't know either. But back in the olden days of MTV, we were young.
Yeah.
Like, we were young when MTV was in its genesis, but it was the 80s for sure when it was just all videos and they were all terrible. They just were terrible. None of them hold up. But did you have one that you loved? Okay, sorry. Let's go back first. MTV, yes or no?
We didn't have cable
Oh, yes.
in my house, but I was at my friends' houses all the time.
Absolutely.
Watch it all the time. My cousins had cable. I watched it there. That was the first place I watched it.
Oh, yeah.
And was enthralled.
Yeah.
Of course.
Enthralled.
Mm-hmm. At home, since I didn't have it, what I would do is, I still watched American Bandstand.
Oh, yeah, same.
And had my VHS tape ready to put it in. And then I didn't want to record all the dancing because you waste tape space that way. But I always recorded the live performances.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if those exist anywhere.
I have found them on
My stars.
the YouTube.
Our kids would die if they saw those.
But also, how fun. People just dancing for a whole hour.
Super good time.
Kids need to watch more of that content.
That's so true. But back to MTV.
So yes, I watched it, but I really don't remember being obsessed.
Mhm.
Like, can't wait to see a certain video
Oh, yeah.
until the Duran Duran era.
Oh, boy.
Like,
I used to put my face an inch from the TV to watch those videos.
all of them. Every single one. And I haven't gone back and watched them. I'm a little offended that you said all the videos were terrible and they don't stand up.
Okay.
Let me just believe that those do.
I'm just telling you right now, I want you to go this afternoon and look on YouTube at some of those videos from the early 80s. The graphics, help us, Jesus. Like, the graphics, the videography is just so terrible. It's just so terrible. And they're cheesy and weird. Everybody's being weird.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's acting weird. And they're doing weird things, and it's grainy, and just... It's a word that I like to use called sucktastic. Do you know what I mean? It's just between them. It's sucktastic. Like, they're bad, but I'm watching.
Yes.
I viscerally remember, and this is like, Jana had a real problem with this, which is why we didn't even have it in our house. But I remember being at my friend Christy's house. Because she had a divorced parents, and so her mom, like, let things happen in the house, because she was like, whatever, man. You know, I can't worry with all this. So we got to just watch, we just brain rot on MTV. And I remember watching Like a Virgin.
Mm-hmm.
Madonna's. I'll tell you right now. Like a Virgin, to me, is peak Madonna. Peak. That the bracelets, the up the arm bracelets, and the lace, and the fingerless gloves, and the big hair with the big bow. The way I wanted to look like that is, I can't even ever explain the depths that I tried.
But also, was your brain smoking? Like,
Because she said the word virgin.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's why Jana wouldn't let me have it. And she didn't like, she would turn it off when it came in the car. I'm like, come on, Jana. It's like a virgin, you know? It's a metaphor. But, like, and how she danced. I can see that video in my brain right now. And hilariously, just this very weekend, I was traveling, as mentioned, and I'm on the plane, and I look down, and what does my little eye spy but about 9 little beaded stacked bracelets, a la Madonna. I looked at that, and one of them had like a little cross on it, like a Madonna cross. Two had crosses. And I was like, I've done it. I had to turn 50 to get there outside of my mom's disapproval.
And it wasn't even intentional.
I just realized I've been channeling her like in some way all this time. Anyway.
It's not terrible.
Oh, MTV was so fun.
Mm.
It was so fun that we watched at our cousins' and friends' houses. I don't think our kids even know the joy of music videos, right? Like the whole thing is yesteryear, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're still making them, but I cannot think of one time one of my 5 children has said something to me about a music video.
No. And also they don't understand the joy of anticipation of what's coming on next because their whole life has been on demand streaming.
Oh, that is so true.
So like just with the radio and making mixtapes and like what's going to come on next.
We just got what we got.
Yeah. But also like exuberance when it was your favorite.
It reminds me of what you said earlier in that when I had my boombox in my bedroom and I would just play radio stations, that's what we had. And I would always have my tape in the tape deck, my blank tape.
Yeah. So
that when one of my favorite songs would come on and who would know when it would be, I could race and the 2 fingers, you had to hit record and play at the same time or whatever it was. 2 fingers. And I usually missed the first 2 bars of the song. But joke's on them because then I had that song for free. And I could play it all the time.
Exactly.
I used to do that when I would listen to every single Saturday morning, Casey Kasem.
Yeah.
The top 40.
Top 40.
Every Saturday.
And then the letters people would send in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The dedications.
God, I love those. The way I wanted somebody to dedicate a song to me is intense.
Could do a whole nother segment on
dedicate. We probably need to. We probably need to put a pin in dedications because I have some real feelings about that. But we got to bring our guest in.
Yes.
Because the people have waited long enough through our nonsense.
Always.
Always. Also, we're just trying to get through the day. Something's got to be funny today. Let me tell you why you're so glad you're here, having listened to all that ramble, because fan favorite Kelly Corgan is on the pod today. So if you don't know Kelly, she's an author, she's a storyteller, she's beloved. She is kind of, her signature move is this open, curious, witty depth. That would be her brand if I had to describe it. She's written 4 New York Times bestselling memoirs. She's been called the Poet Laureate of the Ordinary by HuffPost and Voice of a Generation by O Magazine. When Oprah says it, it's real. Yeah. So in addition to her books, which is how I found her, she's been on the show a handful of times, and I always tell the story, but I didn't know Kelly until I read The Middle Place. The Middle Place was my first book of hers, and I just was enthralled. Greenie reminds me of Larry, my dad.
Yes.
And I called my mom, I called my sisters. I'm like, everybody has to read this right now. Like, you're just not going to believe how familiar this feels to our family and how beautiful the writing is. I laughed, I sobbed. I probably read The Middle Place 10 times. And then what happened is the internet happened and you could make people become your friend.
Yeah.
And I found a way to make her become my friend. And she is my friend. Like, we're real friends now. And so, in addition to her amazing books, and I cannot say enough clearly, she's written amazing New York Times op-eds, like that are super widely read. She has a podcast called Kelly Corgan Wonders. It's brilliant. I will link it for you. You should immediately put that into your repertoire. Everything is beyond the surface with her. It's always got a depth and a curiosity, but also a safety to it. I don't know if that word safety makes sense to you, but she is a safe person to have challenging, nuanced conversations with, without ever feeling like it's going to turn into a brawl or a debate or a whatever. She's really, really gifted at hosting conversations. In the Jen Hatmaker book club, the very first book I ever chose for month 1 was her book called Tell Me More, which we're going to talk to her about in just a minute. Yeah. We've been on tour together. She and I did a tour together. She's been to my house in this yard, and we hosted like a limited gathering. It sold out in like 5 minutes and had, remember that? I think we had maybe 125 people here.
I was the event coordinator for that.
That's right. Of course you were. God, you've done that so many times for me.
Okay.
So sorry. It's just you're good at it.
Yeah.
And we love her around here. And you will love her too. And you're going to love this conversation. There's just some, like, she gentle parented us a little bit today, is how I felt. And she's always delightful and always wonderful. So, welcome back to the For the Love podcast, our friend Kelly Corgan. Hi. I'm trying to think of a face I would rather be looking at more than yours. Coming up late.
Back at you.
Good to see you.
This is a day for company.
It's a day for company. For everybody listening, this is going to come out later. Today at recording, this is election day. So, we're just, what are we?
We are managing as best we can.
I'm drinking water.
Staying
A
hydrated.
lot of water.
I just mowed down like an entire noosa. Do you know noosas? I believe they're meant to be split between 3 people, but not always.
Not today.
Turns out, if you have a fast-moving spoon, you can whip right through that thing.
Okay, you know what? Let's talk about something really important before we dive into this. Because since you've been on here last, I've added my friend Amy. And so we are now doing this together. And we were just doing a little segment we called Gen Excellence, talking about MTV. I'd like to hear your MTV situation. What was your onboarding here? Were you one of the lucky families who had MTV? No, of course not.
So I was raised by a frugal woman who believed that vanity and consumerism were going to swallow up every good part of human nature. And indeed, she was perhaps correct.
Well,
And so there were many weird rules that other people my age did not have to live by. Like I wasn't allowed to have a blow dryer or a curling iron because they would incite vanity.
vanity.
Yes, that you would just, school isn't a fashion show. You're not supposed to spend an hour in front of the mirror. Before going to school, you're there to learn.
And yet you
And
did.
then there was something about MTV and cable television in general that was totally offensive to her. Maybe a little bit in the Tipper Gore kind of way, like the gyrating was a little much for her. But also, she was rightly tuned into the idea of influencers and exposing yourself to sort of the pop culture that would want you to shorten your skirt, say, or wear lipstick or eyeliner. Eyeliner would have been a real failure for Mary Corgan. That would have
Mary
been
Corgan says, no, ma'am.
She
to the
says
eyeliner.
no. She says that's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So no, we never had it, and consequently, I was at a huge disadvantage socially. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like people who had cable had seen like Ferris Bueller like 19 times. Like they could quote
That's
it to each other, et cetera, et cetera. And I just had never saw any of that. Like Animal House. I saw Animal House well into my 20s. After it had been quoted at me for 4 years of college and even years after college. And then I finally got to see it for myself. So I remember thinking, oh, this is this terrible, it's yet another club that I do not belong to. And what am I to do with myself? Like, how am I ever going to make it socially without this information, without this knowledge?
Yeah. We didn't have it either. We were too poor for cable. And so HBO, come on, that's how the devil gets in.
Yep.
So
HBO was like skiing. It was like only rich people have HBO and ski.
for sure. But did you go to your friend's house like I did and watch MTV at their house?
Yes, Allison Month, if you're listening right now, she was my corruptor.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice.
And she was a cool cat. Like she could handle it. I was a little bit more like agog. You know? I was a little bit more of a sucker for it.
Well, before we get started with questions and interview portion, I just want to say thank you for your wrap up of the Nantucket project.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
My neighbors first heard you talk about that in Austin, maybe at a Jen Hatmaker event, but they came home, signed up, had a viewing, like, of films. So they've been watching that. And your video
That's a
made the
really
rounds.
fun challenge for me. So it's one of those 4-day things. It's like a thinkers conference, like Aspen Ideas or TED or something. And I take mad notes throughout where I'm trying to grab out of the speech or the talk or the interview or the moment, like something that I definitely don't want to forget. And then over the days, these sort of mini lists accumulate. Like I had a list called the no shit list, which was like stuff I just had never thought of before. Then I had a list of numbers that I didn't want to forget. And then I had a list of things that we do that are healing and things that we do that are dividing. And so on the one hand, it helps me process just a mountain of information that's coming in pretty fast and furious over a 4-day period. And then it's this really fun kind of performance challenge of how to line up, it's probably like 16 pages of information. So then you have to give up at least 70% of it doesn't get said.
Yeah.
And then you take that 30 and try to sequence it in a way that will be memorable and funny and then moving and, sort of creating the kind of balance that we do when we're trying to write stories or books.
Yeah.
Is touching on.
We all watched
the heavier
it multiple times.
That's nice.
In fact, for today. So at the end of your wrap up, you say, so children of the cosmos, let's quantum entangle with the world at large. Let's not waste a fingernail's worth of this wild and precious life. And let's remember, we will dance again.
Okay, so let me tell you where all that comes from. Diane Nyad was there, and the swimmer, and she quoted Mary Oliver's great poem, "What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And then there was a young woman there who was at the music festival in Israel, where all the Hamas attack on October 7th. And she told that story to the best of her ability for about 20 minutes on stage. You could have heard pin drop.
Wow.
And the last thing she said in her little tiny voice that was like flooded with tears was, "We will dance again."
Oh, gosh.
And so in my mind, she earned the pride of place. Like of all the things that people had said in front of us over those 4 days, that was a thing that only she could have said without it being Pollyanna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt that in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what the Nantucket Project is so good at is having hard, nuanced conversations, which also translates into individual, personal, hard conversations.
It's where they live.
So the subtitle of your memoir, Tell Me More, is Stories About the 12 Hardest Things I Am Learning to Say. So it's been a few years. I'm wondering if that list of 12 has expanded. And what advice you can give us in this moment for saying hard things.
The phrase that started that whole book project was this little debate that my husband and I had about the difference between saying I'm sorry and saying I was wrong. And I was positing that saying I was wrong is a bigger, more powerful statement. And I've been thinking about it vis-a-vis the election. Because we have created this way of interpreting somebody changing their mind as a flip-flopper. And we have left no room for people to grow. Like Obama was not for gay marriage when he first started.
Yeah.
And then he learned more and probably met more people and was exposed to more philosophy and more religion and more political consequences. And, the incredible blend of information that must come across a president's desk in any given day, week, month.
Yeah.
And over the course of that experience, he changed his mind. What if we hadn't let him? What if we were a society that said, well, you can't do that. That you're a flip-flopper. You can't say you were wrong. We don't abide that. Like, what will we have missed? And of course, scientists do it. They say, I was wrong. We were wrong. This is better information. So I have felt that even more strongly than when the book first came out, which at the time I was thinking about it more in interpersonal terms, like how curative it is to hear another person say, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have made that move. I shouldn't have left that night. I shouldn't have called you that. I shouldn't have bought that thing. I mean, that's really a crossing over. It's like a real, like, exposure, high exposure thing to say. And probably people don't say it because people are afraid to get clobbered interpersonally. Yeah. If you say it, it's like, you're damn right you're wrong. Instead of thank you. The only response to someone saying I was wrong is thank you.
Yeah.
Because it's just what you would want. If you had the nerve, if you had the heart to say to someone, I was wrong, all you want to hear is thank you. I appreciate that. That is not an easy thing to say. And next time it'll be me saying it. Like, don't be so cocky.
That's right.
But politically, it's like insane that we don't have a culture where people can say, I was wrong. My take on, like, say, what we would do in a foreign policy decision was incomplete. Because when you're in office, you have access to more information. And you can call together a panel of experts anytime you want to advise you in new ways. And so it better be okay to say, I have changed my mind. I was wrong. My initial idea about taxation, about healthcare, about K-12 education, about foreign policy in the Middle East was incomplete and therefore wrong. And now I know more, I've seen more, I've heard more, I've read more, and I have a different opinion. So that's one of the lines, and one of the chapters in Tell Me More is called I Was Wrong, and it feels more important to me than ever. And then, Tell Me More will work all day long. I mean, it'll never not work. So if you're at war with somebody over politics, for instance, just pulling that out of a hat, random example.
Sure.
If you could stop yourself from berating or dressing down or enjoying one of your favorite little go-to lectures that you fantasize and write in your head, and then you like lay out, like some hyper-articulate person on West Wing. And you were just to say, my goal here is to understand. It is not to persuade. And it is not to be understood. It is only to understand. Then the only thing you've got and the only thing you need is tell me more. Tell me more. What else? Go on. It works when someone's dying. I mean, it's all we did when my mom was dying. Say, tell me more. What else? Go on.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we knew what she wanted. Specifically. And it would work with a neighbor. I mean, it'll never not work.
I find it hard to overcome the impulse, and it's located in a couple of very, very self-righteous chambers, which include, if I don't use this moment to tell you how you are wrong, and help you understand how I am right, and why it matters to the collective good of culture and society and people and our neighbors, then I am in some way abdicating my convictions. I am letting down the communities for whom I'm defending, or what I would just see as just the common good. And so it is a skill, a discipline to realize that's really not my job, is to explain perfectly, get you here. That's really almost never worked. So the capacity to just set that over and go, this conversation is not for convincing. Period. So if that's not, that really does open us up to be able to listen in a way that isn't linked to our virtue, right? And our moral superiority.
Yeah. Even on occasions where your goal is to convince, you will still have a better shot at convincing if you tell me more of them for 70 or 80% of the time.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's just like good sales. You know, like if you've ever had to sell something large, like you have to learn so much before you even begin to put together an ask that has a shot.
Right.
That's a great point. There's a fun thing to talk to you about that you have just dropped to the little world for early inspection, and I love it. I didn't know you were doing this. It is a book with Claire, your daughter, Maryann the Maker, and it's just darling, a little girl who's an inventor. I just did not know you were doing this. Tell me about this. Like, where did this come from, and whose idea was this? And did you have to convince Claire, or was it her idea?
It's basically her story, and a little bit mine. We have a lot in common. You know, it starts with he signed her up as all dads do. You'll love this. I loved this sport, and so will you. And it's a dad who thinks you're gonna love soccer. I love soccer. Everybody loves soccer. And this kid's lying and fake coughing and pretend, you know, she's kind of Ferris Buellering her way out of soccer practice. And so there's a layer that is about parents really seeing the kid in front of them. And then there's this terrific celebration of being a maker at heart, like seeing the world as a series of problems to solve, small and large, like how to turn the recycling into a diorama, or how to write code that will scrape the dark web, which is something that Claire does as a side gig in college. So she is
barely even know what that
computer
means.
science, drama, double major.
Sure.
Oh, Jen, I don't know what it means either. My kids are so far. I mean, George is an investment banker. I have no idea what she's talking about half the time. And
I know what that means, and that's impressive.
It's so true.
So we hatched this idea for this kid who could make all kinds of things over the years. So we really hope Maryann will be this huge character for a generation of kids. And Maryann, like Claire wrote this follow-up book called Maryann Makes a Memory, which is about trying to jigger the holidays so that her Christian grandma and her Jewish grandma can be equally happy with what they see in the house, what they eat, how they celebrate, etc. But in doing it, she's so consumed with her little making projects that she's not spending time with anybody. And so then she gets it that, like, to make a memory, you have to make together. And so then there's Maryann Makes a Mistake. So there's this whole joy in creating this rhyme scheme around this kid, which is really around like an inventor's mindset. Like, what is it to see the world like that, where you have the sort of habitual agency to just do something about it? Like, wouldn't that be wonderful to like fan that flame of personal agency? And it you know, she can make a real mess, which is fun to watch this guy, George Sweetland, who is an elementary school teacher in Connecticut, do the illustrations for her. So it's a joy. It is available everywhere for pre-order now. And we're going to go on a tour in March.
That's so cute and fun.
And go out there together and beat the drum for making as a way of life. And we sort of feel like making is good for individual well-being, like in this neuroarts, neuroaesthetics movement that we're hearing about more and more. And we think that, of course, having an inventor's mindset or an innovator's mindset is good for society.
Totally.
For sure.
How'd you find that writing process? Completely different.
So
genre.
Much easier. Claire's fast. She's kind of has a powerful sense of rhythm, so she can hear it. It's all this like great rhyme scheme, and it's so she takes the blank page
Mm.
and then I take the edits, more or less.
Oh.
And that's been such joy. It's also fun. It's really fun to get forced into like a syllable count. Like it's like a game. It's like it reminds me of like a puzzle that you would do every day in the New York Times or something, where it has to be 3 syllables and it has to end with itty, like synchronicity. But that's way too many. And so like snooping around looking for words and then looking for a better word. I mean, that's sort of some of my favorite parts of writing my books is what's a better word? And then I'm sure you do this too, but you're looking up definitions of words and you're looking at the etymology of a word, and then you're like, oh, it's so interesting. Like that's why I have this association with this word, is that it kind of has this, old Latin interpretation that has somehow made it all the way through all these centuries. So anyway, it's a little bit like that, like the hunting. I like the hunting for the word.
What a great project.
So
kind
fun.
of refreshing, something to do with your kid.
Yeah. And we made Claire, of course, made a website. So that anybody who's listening, if you want to take a peek, her name, it's just MaryanTheMaker.com.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
nice.
link that for everybody for sure. I'm excited for you. Are you guys going to come to Austin?
Love to. Let's do something. Let's do an event.
I'll host you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do the whatever. I'll be your little razzle dazzle. Here they are.
Can we do it under the tree?
Sure.
Love that backyard.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you still there?
We'll circle back on that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to ask you about your TED Talk, and you do so much work in the sphere of courage and vulnerability. You lead with it in your own work, in your own life. So what do you think is the biggest obstacle people face when trying to be vulnerable, like adding this into their daily lives?
Sure.
And what advice can you give them?
I think there's a tremendous desire, especially as the stakes get higher and higher in a personal situation, to have an answer. And I think probably if you could switch and take comfort in having a process, that will probably serve you better and it will give you a little courage. Because if your fear is you don't have the answer, that's a very rational fear. You probably don't. I mean, if your kid is riddled with anxiety and they can't get out of bed or go to class, if you have somebody who's suicidal, if you have somebody who's using drugs, if you have somebody who's stuck in a gambling loop, if you have a kid who's transitioning, you have, a kid that was born from a sperm donor who is now desperate to meet that man. I mean, these are examples from the lives of me and my friends directly. This is my inner circle. I'm not even stretching here. If you're going through a divorce, if you're going through a bankruptcy, you won't have answers. And so courage can't hinge on having answers. You will have to say, I have a way that I'm going to do this. I have a way to figure out what is the next thing I could do right now. And the way is, tell me more. What else? Go on. I mean, if it's not happening to you, if it's happening to someone you love, which is really the heart of the TED Talk, is how when you love people deeply, your kids, your parents, your siblings, BFFs, you're at risk because bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's right then that you will want to be at your highest capacity to serve. And the service is attunement. The service is, you may empty your whole heart with me. You can tell me the whole thing. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to be daunted. I'm not going to get antsy. I'm not going to jump in and try to fix it. I'm not going to try to relate to it. I'm not even going to exist as a person who has their own stakes in the world. I'm literally just like going to absorb you. So you just keep talking. And then what happened? And then what happened? Wow. How did it feel? You're just going and going and going. And they're just pulling up more and more and more. And I feel like the times that I've been in conversations like this, where I have no agenda, my only hope is that they will be empty at the end of it, that they won't have left anything in there. You can tell when somebody has crossed over from things they've told many people to things they've told no one.
Yeah.
You can see when you hit the point where they are now in the really hardest territory, where they haven't told anyone this part of it because it's too shameful. So we were talking to a friend who had a kid with a gambling addiction. And the point at which it crossed over was this friend telling us what they had done in response to it. And what their fear was that they had done the wrong thing. They had helped too much. They'd given money so that this kid could pay back all the debts. And it was like, that was the moment that we were actually in service. Because for the whole first part where he's telling us things he's told other people, it's almost like he's serving us in a way. Like we're curious and we want to be as informed as possible for whatever might happen next in our own lives. Like everybody wants these case studies that we're sharing with one another. And then if you are super tuned into them and you keep saying, what else? And then what? And you see them get to the new material, if you will, that's the moment that you could actually claim to be of service to them. Because now they're getting to say it out loud. And everyone knows who's listening to this that once you say something out loud, it just gets smaller.
That's right.
It just packs less of a punch. It's the stuff that we're holding and never saying to anyone that's going to be the death of us. So I feel the TED thing was really about trying to honor this invisible bravery that is going down in so many households of people I know, where they don't know anything, no training and no experience with anything that's coming to them. And they're doing it little by little. They're helping their trans kid talk to their father. They're helping them write the letter that they read class to class to share their new name. They're helping their husband stop using the old name and helping the husband understand why it's so hard. They're figuring out what to do with the clothing that they kept, the little dresses that they kept. They're doing the hard work of grieving the child who is no longer here and then seeing how much of the child still is here. I mean, it's just so many elements. Even just having my mom die. There's so much happening at the same time. There's too many parts of you that are kind of activated and required. So there's talking to doctors, talking to her, talking to your siblings, talking to her siblings, dealing with her finances, dealing with her house, dealing with her car, dealing with your siblings' emotions to the extent that they want you or don't want you, dealing with my kids and their cousins. Who's capable of coming into that room and who's not? And can you help everybody come in a way that they'll never have a regret? You don't want a 10-year-old worrying when they're 20 that they couldn't go in. I mean, the levels that you're thinking about at the same time, and then your own shit, your loss and your mortality and your in-laws and how long are they going to live? And is your husband going to be able to do this? This is complex. And so at TED, I felt like the typical celebration of TED is this super off the charts, high IQ, going to Mars, going to the depths of the ocean, writing AI, coming up with crypto schemes, companies, birthing new industries. And I just wanted to raise my hand and say, I know some special people too. I know some really, really brilliant people. And this is what they do. And I almost felt like stomping my feet out there and being like, let me tell you something. There is something going on in every household I know.
That's right.
And like, let's celebrate those people. And yes, it's often women. And so maybe there's a little bit of that in me too.
Sure.
But whoever's doing it, whoever's good at loving someone else, that they should be heralded.
So I know with every interaction, you get better at it. You learn the skill of being in service. But before that happens, what work did you do? What was your anchor in being able to not have an agenda when you enter into the hard conversation?
For some reason, a lot of times I learn by watching someone do it poorly. Like, I guess maybe my ego is protecting me from noticing when I'm doing it poorly. So in a very low stakes place, sometimes we'd be interacting with the kids and I would watch Edward slip into fixer mode with one of them about, let's say, making a lacrosse team that they wanted to make. And then he would leave the room to take a call or answer the door or whatever. And I would see the kid relieved because the conversation was over and they had to stop pretending like he was helping them so much. And that, when I saw that, I thought, they're amusing me. They're pretending that when I'm saying all this stuff about friendship or schoolwork or how to not procrastinate or all this stuff we learn on these pods that we do, right? Yeah. I mean, when you're a podcaster and a mother, you are like categorically in trouble because you just have so many tips and you had how many sentences do I start by saying, we know, Kelly Corgan wonders, this woman came, she's a neuroscientist and she's totally. And they must be like, oh my God, stop. I know, right? Please. So I think that by seeing how it goes wrong, seeing people who are not attuning and how it affects the person is the like warning shot that I needed to make me really want to be better at. Instead of wanting the little high that comes from being a problem solver and feeling like you really got them sorted out and sent on their way. Like, that's a big buzz. Yeah. But you're stealing it. You're like, the word that came to mind to me eventually was like, you're stealing it. Edward is stealing it. George is coming to him and saying, here is my problem. And he's saying, just, like that word is such an insult, just blah, 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 blah. And then he leaves the room and he's like, done. Like, nailed it. And she's like, either I'm an idiot because I didn't see it and it was so obvious to him, or he didn't really hear me. So the solution he came up with doesn't really like fit my problem at all. And if he did solve it perfectly, if he got that lucky without listening that much, without asking that many questions, he still came up with a solution that could work, then he stole it from her. Mm-hmm. And what he's stealing is this moment where you're like, I fixed it. I fixed it. I had a problem. It wasn't working and I fixed it. Mm-hmm. And that is not something you should steal. Like, that is the most enabling, like, building block, self-esteem, rich territory that any of us have. Like, sometimes a really dumb example is sometimes I'll be fooling something on my phone and one of the girls will say, here, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, no, teach me to fish. Teach me to fish. Yeah. Like, don't steal it from me, because yes, I'm sure it would be faster and easier and more of a buzz for you to just go boop, 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 done. But I'm no better off than I was 5 minutes ago. I'm still completely dependent. And I don't want to be dependent. Yeah. And I don't think anybody else wants to be dependent either. I think dependence makes you anxious.
It does. I have a kid who defaults to dependence on me. That's her preferred MO. And so I have to push her into independent thought and problem solving, kicking and screaming. And so I have learned, because it's the opposite for me, because I get constant, what should I say? What should I text? How should I handle it? What do I do? And so I have to keep convincing myself that I'm not abdicating my parental role by going, I wonder what do you think? What do you think you should say? Why don't you try it out on me? And then we'll get to the end of it, and I'll just have to go, I am looking forward to seeing how you handle it, kid. And then I walk away
so
like,
hard.
am I
It's
a
so
monster?
It's so hard.
It's good for her, but it feels weird.
But it's so hard to bite your tongue.
Oh, it's so hard. I have answers.
Yeah.
I know how to solve it. I know what to
Great.
say. I know
And I
what
love
to
you.
text.
Like, what a crazy setup. I've lived a long life.
Yeah, that's
I have
right.
lots of information at my fingertips. I have even more than the average mom because of this job we have.
That's right.
And I love you the most.
That's right.
I am the most invested in your well-being. And all of that adds up to, I don't know. What do you think? Like,
Yes.
that's amazing.
What a weird
that
system.
is shocking.
I'm dying laughing. Speaking of podcasting, we talked to Malcolm Gladwell a couple of weeks ago, and you couldn't tell us anything for days. I think I found a way to work something in from that interview into every conversation I had for a week and a half. So I want to talk to you about your podcast for a second. You're just uniquely skilled at high-level conversations, at asking good questions, at following the trail wherever it goes, and not necessarily providing succinct conclusions, but sort of finding our way through, which is what most of us are doing. And so I'd just like to hear, by the way, for everybody listening, it's called Kelly Corgan Wonders. What's been a favorite moment on the show, a favorite person, a favorite conversation or guest, or something that you heard, or maybe just something that you're experiencing as it unfolds? You can pick whichever one of those you want.
I mean, probably my favorite type of guest is someone who doesn't have to be doing what they're doing and they do it anyway. So Brian Stevenson was an early guest.
Oh,
Like he could just go around the world giving speeches, getting standing ovations, talking about
Yes.
just mercy and the people he's gotten off of death row and
Yeah.
the work he's done at Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama. He does not have to give 150 guys in prisons around the country his cell phone. He does not have to take those calls. And he does.
yeah,
And Jen Garner, who
yeah.
I love, could just be Jen Garner.
Mhm.
She doesn't have to do Save the Children. She's doing it for 16 years. Christy Turlington, who I love, does Every Mother Counts. I have palled around with her in New York City. Everywhere she goes, people want to talk to her. She could just be Christy Turlington, supermodel. And that's not at all what she wants. So I'm intrigued by that type of person. Steve Kerr is another person like that.
yeah.
Golden State Warriors coach.
Oh,
played
man.
with the Chicago Bulls.
I was jealous.
He could just stay in his lane.
Yeah, I could.
And he's all over this gun control stuff. He won't
right.
let it go, thank God.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
love that person.
Me too.
The person who is opting in to very hard work when really they could coast.
Yeah.
You know, they've and you know, these are people in their 50s and 60s who have plenty of money and plenty of career success. They got a
Sure.
good Wikipedia entry. And they're still doing it. They're troubling themselves. That I love to be around. Melinda Gates.
Yeah.
She could take some time off.
She
She
could.
could kick back and be a grandma. They've done a lot of good work. She went through a big public divorce. I mean, like, she could disappear. She won't. There's no way she'll do it. Samantha
No.
Power. Like, so that's really fun to like platform people who are doers and so inspiring.
So inspiring.
And then I love, which I'm sure you love too, but I love the like, and I always have ever since college. Even in high school, I had a couple teachers who actually had PhDs, and my English program at Radnor High School was just unbelievable. And there are some professors out there who are so articulate. They can make such a fine and specific point with such eloquence. So I could listen to that all day long. I mean, that's like, you know, Pete Buttigieg we had on, and he's like heaven to listen to. I mean, he's just mind-bogglingly clear-headed.
Very noodling is like a guest that you're circling around. Like, come on.
Well, we had Bono this year, and that was just
dumb.
about. I don't know.
I don't even
about
know
that one, honestly. He is such a lovely storyteller. I mean, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, but the accent. Like, if he said my name with his accent one more time, I was just gonna disintegrate. I mean, I was. He's like, Kelly.
Who could blame you?
Kelly, yeah. I said something to him like, he said that all my mother ever really wanted was to raise a happy family. And I was like, I actually think that's a fairly complex thing to want. Like, it might be easier to raise like a rock and roll legend than to create a happy family. And he said, steady there, Kelly, with the legend. I'm not that old yet. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I knew I wasn't crazy because like 3 of my best friends were like, oh my God, I can't stand hearing Bono say your name. And I was like, me neither. I was just like sitting on the other end like, oh my God, oh my God.
That's so amazing.
Amazing.
That sounds like you. We interviewed Stanley Tucci last week. We were both so smitten. Our crush was so obvious. We couldn't even hide it behind the firewall. It was just like, what else, Stanley?
Totally.
Zero chill.
I don't want to hear it. I think I'm going to be embarrassed at how goopy I am. Because I was trying to like get him to like us, like me specifically. So
like maybe you a little bit more than Amy.
I mean,
anyway, we're moving on.
Before we let you go,
yeah.
In addition to everything else we've talked about, I hear you are working on a new manuscript.
Yeah.
I am.
Can you tell us the subject matter at least?
No, I can't. I've really learned so many things about writing, but one of them is that a huge incentive for me is the sharing of it. And so if I steal a little bit of that right now, if I share something and you guys are like, oh, I love that, then it's like a little less incentive to write it. Like I want to force myself to write it and then I'll come back on and we can talk about it endlessly. But then the other thing that I've learned about myself is that I'm very sensitive to like facial expressions or the tone of your voice. So if I tell you that and you just have a middling reaction or you have a twitch in your eyebrow right as I'm saying what it's about, or you say something totally innocent like, oh, I read a book just like that, I will be fucked up about it for like 2 weeks. I'll be like, you know what? I told Jen and Amy, and Jen said that she heard of this book and Amy's eyebrow did this weird thing. And like, maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe it's not good. So that is why I am not answering your question. But I can say at a really high level that I'm at a point where I wouldn't write a book if I didn't feel like I really wanted to say this thing. Yeah. It's very specific that I feel is missing and super high value. Yeah. Like if I could get it all the way through into your ear and into your heart, like it would have been worth the effort.
Yeah.
So that's what's pushing me along.
Are your fingers on the keyboard and you're already writing it?
Some days.
Some days. I know.
You know, I'm a woman with many projects. And that's not good because you can, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, you started this podcast it's just one giant elaborate procrastination. Because, you know, if I map out my whole life, it's like, oh, make PBS shows, make podcasts, help Christy Turlington with Every Mother Counts. Do Maryann the Maker.
Write a children's
Do
book.
this kids book series with Claire. I think there's like 2 more categories. The one that is the most put offable
is writing.
Working on the manuscript. And
Of
it's
course
such
it
a
is.
different mood you have to be in. Like I'm always in the mood to talk to people. So
Well,
I
it's
have
delightful.
to like
There's someone
find
else
this mood.
to do some of the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
So it's this shared energy. Writing is lonely, solitary work. It's coming out of your brain. That's where it's coming from.
Mhm.
So what else could we
But
do?
one good sentence, it's like a golf shot. Not that I play golf, but people always say that.
Yeah.
Just, that it can just be a whole disaster, but like one great sentence. Like just this morning, I was like, oh, that's nice. This
Yeah.
little way I had of saying something. I was like, that's nice. That's nice. And I
Oh,
was like, maybe I'll do it again tomorrow.
I can't wait. If you were just going to say, this is more or less when you guess it's going to come out into the world. How far out are we?
Definitely by the time I turn 60. So I'm
Okay.
57 years old.
Okay. All right.
Definitely not going to let it go past that.
Okay, great.
Well, you produce enough content
Mhm.
to keep us busy
That's right.
and
It's true.
working
Correct.
on ourselves
That's
and
correct.
our relationships that I can wait 3 years.
You were so right
Thank
about
you.
that.
I appreciate your patience.
Let's have this one last little thing for you to say. Of course, again, I'm not going to call it moot, but it will be after the moment. But if you were to say one Kelly Corgan thing to the voting block that exists in the world today, and we're wringing our little hands and we're drinking our little water, and it's a big day.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that people are going to hear this after whatever has happened has happened.
I mean, I saw this great sentence this morning that said that the definition of democracy is that at any time someone can lose and someone can win.
Mm.
And I thought that's really to be respected.
Mm.
And there are many, many tens of millions of people who appreciate the complexity and the hard work that is democracy. Tens of millions, maybe 100 million people really recognize that, like, it's not perfect, but it's the best thing that's ever been created. It's the best form of government that has ever existed on planet Earth in terms of giving people some say in their own destiny and representing all kinds of people versus just the people who are very wealthy, which is that's the undertow, right?
Yeah.
And there might be like 100 million of us that really believe that we can protect this thing one way or another, no matter what happens.
Mm.
But it's a participatory form of government. So you have to participate.
Yeah.
And that's kind of tiring.
That
And
has
yet
been.
it is a requirement that we participate in it, like day in and day out, whoever's in charge.
It's a good word. That is evergreen. That'll hang on past
Mm-hmm.
November 5th.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good word. Okay.
Happy to be with you guys on this crazy day.
Thank you. I'm just always so happy to see you at any
too.
given moment, and I appreciate your way of being in the world. And I have thought so much about you this year after losing your mom, and we know so much about your parents because you shared them with us. And thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Really, thanks for doing that. Between Mary and Greenie, I feel like I've pulled up a seat to your table for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I feel
Are your
lucky
parents
to have
doing
done
well?
so. They are.
Yay.
Larry and
Tell them I
Jana.
said hello.
If you are not already following Kelly, that needs to be fixed today. So if you go over to jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, I'm going to round all this up for you. All of her book titles, her upcoming book with Claire that you can pre-order, link to her podcast, link to her socials. This is a quality follow. Like in a time when we are needing to weed out our social media intake like crazy, this is one to add. I promise. You'll be so glad that you did. And I was glad to talk to her today on such a consequential day. And instead of feeling more anxious, I feel less.
Yes, agree.
And so when this comes out, we'll know what we know, won't we? But what she said, if you remember her little takeaway there at the end, is this democracy experience and experiment is a masterpiece, and we have to participate in it. And in a good democracy, someone can always win and someone can always lose.
There you go.
It's just the truest thing that could have been said on a day like today. So thank you for listening, you guys. Thank you for following the show. If you haven't already done that, just subscribe wherever you get your podcast, any platform that you like. That will take you 5 seconds. You just hit the plus button or add or follow. It's going to do some such like that. And it goes into your library. And then you get an episode every single week without having to try for it. So thank you for doing that. We love having you subscribe, and we love hearing from you. And thank you for rating, and thank you for reviewing, and thank you for commenting. We just have such an incredible listening community. So on that note,
thank y'all for listening.
See you next week.